Your game will fail on Steam, and it will not matter that you came up with a fresh original idea, worked hard developing it, did everything right, and actually finished your game. Steam will bury your game all the same, just because 79 more games were released on Steam that same day. And today, as it was yesterday, 80 games will launch on Steam. Tomorrow, 80 more. Next week, hundreds more. Most of them will disappear almost immediately. It's just too many games. Last year, nearly half of all games released on Steam received fewer than 10 reviews. Not 10,000. 10, that's roughly a few hundred copies sold after years of work. More than 18,000 games launched on Steam in 2024. At the same time, a tiny handful of titles captured players' attention and most of the revenue. That's the reality of the market. And before you spend years building your dream project, you need to understand the numbers behind that reality. So let's look at them. Let's break down how Steam actually works, what the odds really look like, and what developers can do to avoid becoming another invisible release. Steam revenue follows a power law, and power laws are brutal. A handful of titles take almost everything. The long tail takes scraps. Here's what that looks like in real numbers. In 2024, 78% of games released on Steam ended up with fewer than 50 reviews. Using Steam's rough review to sales ratio, that's under 1,500 copies for nearly 4 out of 5 games on the entire platform. Now subtract. Valve takes 30% of every sale. Your government takes income tax on what's left. Then subtract the 2 or 3 years you spent building it. A game that sells 1,000 copies at $15 grosses $15,000. After Steam's cut and tax, the developer keeps maybe 9. Split between 2 people across 3 years, that's a rounding error on a minimum wage job. 80 games a day isn't competition. Competition means players see all the players. Steam's catalog passed 100,000 games. No human browses even 1% of what releases each week. Most games don't lose to better games. They're never seen at all. Steam doesn't show new games to players. It shows games that already prove players want them. Your launch week decides almost everything. Data from Game Discover Co. shows that for a typical game, the entire first year of revenue is only about 2.5 times the first week. Translate that. Your opening week is close to 40% of everything you'll ever earn. The visibility Steam grants at launch through new and trending either catches fire or it doesn't, and the algorithm rarely circles back. Wishlists are the currency. A game arriving with 10,000 wishlists triggers a wave of launch day notifications, climbs the trending lists, and feeds itself more visibility. A game arriving with 200 wishlists launches into silence, and silence is permanent. This is why most games lose before most players ever hear they exist, not on quality, on a launch window measured in days, set up by months of work that the developer didn't know they were supposed to do. Hades, Hollow Knight, Cuphead, every gamer knows them. All 3 did something most developers never budget for. They built an audience before the game was finished. Supergiant ran Hades in early access for 2 years, shipping updates in public and turning players into the marketing department. Cuphead spent years as a moving image people couldn't stop sharing because its 1930s hand-drawn style was a hook before it was a game. Team Cherry built Hollow Knight's reputation across conventions and communities long before launch day. Visibility is its own product, developed in parallel with the game. A trailer that lands in the first 3 seconds without sound. A Steam page tuned to the tags the algorithm reads as quality signals. A wishlist campaign that starts 6 months out, not 2 weeks. Most developers open their Steam page a fortnight before release. The algorithm hasn't indexed them, the press hasn't covered them, the streamers haven't scheduled them, and the other 79 games launching that day made exactly the same mistake. Every article about indie development opens with Concerned Ape or Local Thunk. One person, one dream, millions of copies. The industry loves these stories because they sell the idea that anyone can. For every Concerned Ape, thousands of developers did the exact same thing. Quit the job, spent 3 years, built something they believed in, sold 340 copies. They don't give interviews, their postmortems don't headline GDC, their Steam pages exist, unvisited. This is survivorship bias, and it's more dangerous now than ever because the tools got free. Unity and Unreal cost nothing. Tutorials exist for everything. The barrier to making a game collapsed. The barrier to being noticed did the opposite. It rose because the same free tools put far more people in the same finite space. 18,000 games a year is what happens when anyone can build. Player attention didn't multiply to match. It stayed exactly the size it always was. The games that survive share a few traits, and just make a good game isn't one of them. They test the core loop before full production. A rough prototype in 1 or 2 months answers the only question that matters early: is this actually fun to play? Studios that skip that step find out after the budget is gone, not before. They run the Steam math up front, how many wish lists they need for a real launch, which genre and price point return the most revenue per player, which tags signal quality to the algorithm, and they bring in people who've already walked this road, a publisher with distribution, an external studio that has shipped successful launches and knows where the technical problems hide before review copies go out, a QA team that catches the critical bug before the first reviewer does. The first negative review on Steam lives forever. A crash on launch day turns goodwill into refunds during the exact hours the algorithm is watching hardest. 80 games launch on Steam every day. Most disappear, and most of them never knew the rules of the game they were playing. Kevuru Games builds games and carries teams from prototype to release. Development on Unity and Unreal Engine, game art, QA, porting, and co-development for studios that need real production power at the moments that decide whether a launch survives. 13 years of shipping, we know where the problems hide.